December 24, 1943. Italy. Mountainside positions 3 kilometers northwest of Cassino. 2 lines faced each other across a ravine. Distance, 180 meters. German positions on the northern slope. American positions on the southern. Both sides had been in place for 11 days. Both sides had fortified their ground, sandbags, firing pits, camouflaged observation posts. Both sides had artillery registered on the opposite slope. Both sides had orders. At 15:47 hours the silence was complete. No gunfire, no movement, no sounds except wind through bare trees and the distant echo of shelling from another sector. The temperature was 2 degrees Celsius. Cloud cover low. Visibility adequate but gray. On the American side, 1st Lieutenant James Keller of the 36th Infantry Division crouched in a command post dug into the hillside. He held a field telephone receiver. The line was open to battalion. Battalion had transmitted orders at 15:30. Artillery strike at 16:00. Infantry assault at 16:05. Objective: seize German positions across the ravine before nightfall. Keller had acknowledged. He had briefed his platoon leaders. Soldiers were in assault positions. Weapons loaded. Grenades ready. Machine gunners had fields of fire confirmed. Mortar crews had coordinates set. Everyone waited. The clock showed 15:48, 12 minutes until the barrage, 13 minutes until the attack. The line remained silent. The American position was held by elements of Company E, 142nd Infantry Regiment. Approximately 90 men. They had occupied this slope since December 13, following a limited advance from the Mignano Gap. The terrain was steep, rocky, covered with scrub and thin forest. Fighting positions were crude but effective. Shallow trenches reinforced with stones, log-covered dugouts for command posts and aid stations. The German position across the ravine was estimated to contain 40 to 60 soldiers. Unit identification was uncertain, likely elements of the 15th Panzergrenadier Division. They had been there longer, possibly since late November. Their positions were better developed. Concrete reinforced bunkers visible through binoculars. Wire obstacles down the slope. Suspected minefields at the ravine bottom. The ravine itself was approximately 40 meters deep, steep-sided with a narrow stream at the bottom. Crossing it would require descending the American slope, traversing the stream, and climbing the German slope under fire. No cover existed except scattered boulders and vegetation. Standard tactical assessment, high casualties expected. Battalion had estimated 30% losses to secure the objective. Weather conditions had been poor for days. Rain, then sleet, then freezing fog. The ground was partially frozen, making digging difficult. Supply lines were tenuous, everything carried up by hand or mule. Ammunition was adequate but not abundant. Food was cold rations. Water was from the stream, purified with tablets. Morale was functional but not high. Men were cold, tired, and aware of what the next hour would bring. The sector had been quiet since December 20. Occasional sniper fire. Rare mortar exchanges. No major actions. Both sides appeared content to hold positions and wait. Battalion intelligence suggested German forces were consolidating for defensive operations around Cassino proper. The American assault was intended to disrupt this consolidation, seize better observation positions, and maintain pressure on the German line. Division orders had specified December 24 as the attack date. Time chosen, late afternoon, allowing darkness to cover consolidation after the assault. Artillery support allocated. 1 battery of 105 howitzers, 15-minute preparation. Infantry objective: reach German positions, eliminate resistance, establish defensive perimeter before 17:30 hours. Simple plan, standard execution, expected outcome, casualties, some ground gained, position improved. The machinery of war functioned through repetition of such operations. American infantry doctrine emphasized aggressive offense. Training at stateside camps and replacement depots had drilled assault tactics repeatedly. Advance under covering fire. Use terrain. Close with the enemy. Overwhelm defensive positions. accept casualties as necessary to achieve objectives. The 36th Division had been in combat since Salerno in September. The men knew the procedures. They had executed similar assaults before. Lieutenant Keller had been with the company since October. He had led 2 previous attacks, one successful with moderate losses, one repulsed with heavy losses. He understood the mechanics, artillery preparation to suppress defenders, then rapid movement before they recovered. Speed was essential. Hesitation invited disaster. Once committed, the assault had to be driven through to completion regardless of cost. His platoon leaders were experienced. His sergeants were competent. His soldiers were trained and equipped. The plan was clear. At 16:00, artillery would strike German positions. High explosive rounds. Impact fuses. Purpose: destroy bunkers, cut wire, kill defenders, create shock effect. At 16:05, infantry would begin descent into ravine, covering fire from machine guns and mortars. First wave, 2 platoons, approximately 40 men. Second wave, 1 platoon in reserve. Assault rifles, grenades, bayonets fixed. The expectation was simple. They would cross the ravine under fire, reach German positions, engage in close combat, and either succeed or fail based on training, luck, and determination. Battalion would observe through forward observers. If the assault succeeded, reinforcements would move up. If it failed, survivors would withdraw and the position would be held as before. This was the established pattern. This was what happened in war. Soldiers checked their equipment one final time. Rifle actions, grenade pins, ammunition pouches, canteens, medical kits. Each man performed his private ritual of preparation. Some smoked, some prayed, some stared at the ground, most were silent. They had been through this before. They knew what the next 20 minutes would bring. The waiting was always the worst part. Then the artillery would start. Then the movement. Then the chaos. Across the ravine, German soldiers presumably made similar preparations. They would have heard American activity. They would have observed preparations. They would know an attack was likely. They would be ready. Machine guns positioned. Ammunition distributed. Fields of fire established. Defensive doctrine was equally clear. Wait for attackers to enter kill zones, then deliver maximum fire. Infantry assaults against prepared positions always favored the defense. The Germans would have the advantage. The Americans would have momentum and numbers. The outcome would be determined by execution. At 15:55, Keller checked his watch. 5 minutes. He looked at his platoon leaders. They nodded. Ready. He picked up the telephone receiver. Battalion would confirm artillery on schedule. The line was silent. He waited. Normal procedure. Battalion confirms 30 seconds before artillery fires. The confirmation had not come. 15:56. Still no confirmation. Keller pressed the receiver to his ear. Static. No voice. He jiggled the connection. Still static. He looked at his radio operator. The operator shook his head. Radio was for emergency only. Telephone was primary. The line was open but silent. 15:57. Soldiers began to notice the delay. Eyes shifted from the ravine to Keller. He showed nothing. Command presence required calm, but inside calculation began. No confirmation meant no artillery. No artillery meant no assault. Or did it? Orders were clear. Attack at 16:05. Artillery support was promised but not guaranteed. Weather could have delayed it. Communications could have failed. The attack time remained fixed. 15:58. Keller considered his options. Proceed without artillery. Wait for confirmation and delay. Abort and request new orders. Each choice had consequences. Proceeding without artillery meant higher casualties. Waiting meant losing surprise. Aborting meant explaining failure to attack. Military culture punished caution more than aggression. Bold action was valued. Hesitation was not. 15:59. The telephone remained silent. Keller made no decision. He simply waited. 1 more minute. The assault time would arrive. He would have to choose. His hand held the receiver. His eyes watched the clock. His mind calculated, and the seconds passed without resolution. No order given. No movement initiated, just waiting. The line remained quiet. 16:00. The artillery did not fire, the ravine remained silent. Keller did not give the order to attack, he continued waiting. The moment had arrived and passed without action. The soldiers in assault positions recognized the delay immediately. They had been tensed for the artillery barrage. The absence of sound was conspicuous. Heads turned. Questions formed but were not asked. Discipline held. They remained in position, but confusion spread through small gestures and exchanged glances. 16:02. Still no artillery, still no order from Keller. Platoon leaders looked to him for direction. He held up one hand. Wait. The gesture was clear but provided no explanation. Wait for what? Wait how long? These questions hung unspoken in the cold air. The soldiers waited because they were trained to wait, but the waiting stretched beyond normal parameters. 16:05. The scheduled assault time. No movement forward. No sound except wind and distant artillery from other sectors. The German position across the ravine showed no reaction. They had not fired. They had not repositioned. If they had expected an attack, they showed no indication now. The ravine remained empty. Both slopes remained static. Time continued, but events did not. Keller tried the telephone again. Still static. Still no voice. He considered sending a runner back to battalion headquarters, but that would take 30 minutes minimum. The situation would evolve faster than information could travel. Radio was the alternative, but broadcasting would compromise security. He was isolated in this moment, dependent on his own judgment with no guidance from above. 16:08. Soldiers began to relax slightly. Not standing, not lowering weapons, but the acute readiness for imminent combat began to fade. Muscles released. Breathing deepened. The psychological preparation for assault could not be maintained indefinitely without discharge. The men remained alert, but the edge was dulling. Some looked at each other with questions in their eyes. Others simply stared forward, accepting the situation without understanding it. 16:10. A sergeant crawled forward to Keller's position. Whispered question, "Sir, are we attacking?" Keller's response, "Waiting for orders." The sergeant nodded and crawled back. The answer satisfied procedure but explained nothing. Waiting for orders was normal, but orders had already been given. The attack time had been set. Something had changed. What had changed was unclear. Time continued its slow progression. Each minute felt longer than the last. The silence was not peaceful, it was charged with potential violence that had not yet materialized. Both sides remained in position. Both sides remained armed and ready, but neither side acted. The front line that should have exploded with artillery and small arms fire remained quiet, and the quiet became its own form of tension. At 16:23, the telephone crackled. Battalion Operations Officer, hold current positions. Artillery support canceled. Stand down from assault posture but maintain readiness. Keller acknowledged. The line went dead. No explanation provided. No new orders given beyond cancellation of the attack. Later documentation, unit journals, after-action reports, provides fragmentary explanation. Artillery Battalion had received priority fire mission for different sector at 15:45. Division had redirected all available fire support to counter German counterattack, developing near San Pietro. The 105 battery assigned to support Keller's assault had been pulled without notification reaching company level in time. Battalion Command had attempted to notify Keller at 15:50, but telephone line had been damaged, possibly by tree falling on wire, possibly by artillery concussion from distant fire, possibly by deliberate German action. Radio silence protocols prevented immediate alternative communication. By the time battalion realized Keller had not received cancellation, assault time had already passed. They then waited to see if assault proceeded without artillery support. When no assault developed by 16:15, Battalion Operations Officer contacted Keller via repaired telephone line to confirm cancellation. The decision to cancel had been made at battalion level based on unavailability of artillery support. Assessment: Assault without artillery preparation against prepared positions would result in unacceptable casualties for minimal tactical gain. Risk exceeded potential benefit. Operation postponed indefinitely. Keller's decision at 16:00 had been to wait rather than proceed without artillery. This decision was neither courageous nor cowardly. It was procedurally ambiguous. Orders had specified artillery support. Without confirmation of artillery, tactical situation was different from planned operation. Proceeding would have been aggressive but potentially reckless. Waiting was cautious but potentially passive. Either choice could have been justified or criticized depending on outcome. The fact that battalion had independently decided to cancel the operation validated Keller's pause. But this validation was accidental. His decision to wait was made without knowledge of battalion's cancellation. He waited because artillery had not fired and confirmation had not arrived. The correlation between his choice and battalion's order was coincidental. Two independent decisions, one at company level, one at battalion level, converged on the same outcome: no assault. The operation did not occur because artillery was unavailable, and both battalion command and company command recognized that the tactical situation no longer matched the planned operation. The front line remained quiet because the machinery of war temporarily malfunctioned, not through mechanical failure but through the intersection of communication breakdown, resource reallocation, and individual judgment under uncertainty. At 16:25, Keller passed the word, "Stand down." Soldiers withdrew from assault positions to defensive positions. Weapons were saved. Grenades were returned to pouches. The tension that had built towards 16:00 dissipated gradually. Men sat or lay in their positions. Some ate rations, some smoked, some slept. The afternoon continued without incident. Across the ravine, German positions showed no change. They had not been attacked. They had not fired. If they had been aware of American preparations, they gave no sign. The silence that had held during the scheduled assault time continued into evening. By nightfall, the sector had returned to its baseline state: two opposing lines, close proximity, mutual awareness, no combat. Keller filed a brief report to battalion via telephone at 17:00. Reported situation: assault not executed due to artillery cancellation. Unit returned to defensive posture, no casualties, no contact with enemy, position unchanged. Battalion acknowledged without comment. The operation appeared in records as postponed pending resource availability. No date was set for rescheduling. The objective remained, but the urgency had passed. That evening, men prepared positions for continued occupation, improved fighting positions, redistributed ammunition, checked equipment, ate dinner. The routine of position warfare resumed. The day that should have been marked by combat and casualties instead ended quietly. Some soldiers expressed relief. Others expressed frustration at the anticlimax. Most expressed nothing. They had prepared for violence. Violence had not occurred. Now they waited for the next day and whatever it would bring. December 24 ended without ceremony. No Christmas celebration occurred in the positions. No fraternization with German forces. No truce. Just silence and cold and the continuation of military routine. Both sides remained in place. Both sides remained ready, but neither side acted. The front line that had been prepared to explode remained quiet, and the quiet held through the night. The canceled assault on December 24, 1943, generated minimal documentation. Unit journal entry: attack postponed. No after-action report was filed because no action occurred. No casualty report was necessary because no casualties were sustained. The operation existed in records only as a gap, a planned event that did not materialize. Battalion command did not investigate Keller's 30-minute delay in communicating with higher headquarters. The telephone line failure was noted as mechanical issue. No blame was assigned. Company performance was assessed as satisfactory. They prepared for assault, stood ready, executed stand-down orders when received. Standard procedure followed throughout. No medals were awarded, no commendations issued, no recognition given for decisions made or not made. Military bureaucracy rewards action, not restraint. Success is measured in objectives taken, enemies killed, ground seized. An assault that did not occur produced no metrics for evaluation. Keller's choice to wait rather than attack without artillery was neither praised nor criticized. It simply happened and then was forgotten in the larger flow of operations. The assault was never rescheduled. By December 27, the tactical situation had changed. German forces had withdrawn from some positions. American forces had advanced in other sectors. The specific objective of December 24 became irrelevant. New plans were made. New operations were conducted. The ravine crossing at that location never occurred. The positions were eventually abandoned by both sides as the front moved north toward the Rapido River and Cassino proper. 30 soldiers who would likely have died or been wounded in the assault, based on standard casualty estimates, continued living. They did not know they had been spared. They had prepared to attack. The attack had been canceled. This was not unusual. Combat involved constant planning and replanning. Most planned operations were modified or canceled. This one was not special. It left no mark except silence in the record where action should have been. Lieutenant Keller remained with the 36th Division through the Italian campaign. He participated in the disastrous Rapido River crossing in January 1944, where his company suffered 70% casualties. He survived. He was promoted to captain and later wounded at Anzio in March. He was evacuated and did not return to combat. He received a Bronze Star for actions at Anzio, unrelated to December 24. After the war, Keller returned to Ohio and worked in manufacturing. He did not discuss his military service extensively. His family knew he had been in Italy. They knew he had been wounded. They did not know about specific operations or decisions. The December 24 incident, if he remembered it at all, was one day among many, distinguished only by what did not happen rather than what did. Of the 90 men in Company E on December 24, 37 were killed in subsequent combat before war's end. 22 were wounded. 31 survived unwounded. The survivors returned to civilian life and scattered across the country. A few attended reunions in the 1950s and 1960s. Conversations focused on major battles and shared hardships. Small incidents like the canceled assault were not memorable enough to discuss. The day was remembered, if at all, as that time we almost attacked on Christmas Eve. The significance was lost. The silence left no story to tell. The German soldiers who occupied the positions across the ravine are unidentifiable from available records. Their units suffered casualties in subsequent fighting. Some died. Some were captured. Some returned to Germany after the war. They never knew American forces had prepared to assault their position on December 24. The day held no significance for them. It was one quiet day in a war of many days. Nothing happened. Therefore, nothing was remembered. The ravine still exists. The slopes are overgrown now. No trace of fighting positions remains. The ground has returned to agricultural use. The site is unmarked. No monument indicates that armies once faced each other across this terrain. No plaque commemorates the assault that did not occur. The location exists only in map coordinates in military archives, noted as a position held briefly in late 1943, nothing more. December 24, 1943 was one day in a campaign that lasted months. The Italian front involved thousands of small unit actions, hundreds of planned operations, dozens of major battles. Most operations proceeded as planned. Some were modified. Some were canceled. The distinction between executed and canceled operations was administratively clear but historically obscure. What happened was recorded. What did not happen left only gaps in the record. The front line northwest of Cassino that afternoon represented one such gap. 2 forces prepared for combat. Weapons were loaded. Orders were given. The machinery of war was engaged. Then the machinery stopped. Artillery did not fire. Infantry did not advance. The assault time came and passed. The line remained quiet. The explanation was procedural: resource reallocation, communication failure, tactical reassessment. The outcome was silence where violence should have been. No one celebrated this silence. No one recognized it as significant. It was simply an operation that did not occur, filed away with hundreds of similar non-events, forgotten by participants, invisible to historians, absent from narratives. The story has no hero because no action was taken. It has no climax because no violence occurred. It has no resolution because nothing was resolved. It simply is a moment when war paused for mundane reasons and then continued elsewhere. The front line went quiet instead of exploding. Men who prepared to die did not die that day. They died later, or survived, or returned home, carrying no memory of significance from December 24. The date held no meaning. The ravine held no bodies. The operation held no place in history. And the silence that should have been filled with artillery and gunfire and screaming remained silence, complete, unremarkable, and permanent.